What's up gamers, DreamcastGuy here, talking today about Godfall. You see, this week, I managed to not only get a PlayStation 5, but I've done some pretty in-depth videos about pretty much all the launch games, including Miles Morales, Demon's Souls, and even Bugs Nax. But I have noticed that a lot of subscribers have been telling me, DreamcastGuy, you absolutely have to check out Godfall because it's a mess. This game just downright sucks. So I decided to go to Walmart. I discovered that they'd sold pretty much no copies of it. I bought and beat the game. And I gotta say that while this is a pretty sloppy experience, a lot of people are kind of hating this game for all the wrong reasons. Now this video is going to be pretty negative. I do think that Godfall in general is definitely not a good game. I definitely do not think you should purchase it, but it has some ideas in it that I do kind of enjoy, even if the overall experience downright kind of blows. Now let's talk about what this game is. This is an always online experience, but is mostly a single player game. You're basically playing as this soldier who used to be like the general of this crazy army of like mythical beings practically, when suddenly his brother shows up one day and tries to usurp the throne, kicks him out of his castle, and now it's up to us to try and get revenge. Now the main crux of this story is that basically our brother, who is now like the mega bad guy of the universe, he's trying to become God. So it's up to us to try and defeat all of his top lieutenants and make sure we dethrone him before he ascends to might that cannot be stopped. And let me just say this, the writing in this game is pathetic. It is just so cheesy. Every character's voice acting is bad, the writing is bad, everything in this entire plot is absolutely crazy bad. Like, it is just stunning how weirdly composed this is. But part of the reason that annoys me is because the best part of this game is the art. I still think that despite the fact that the motivations are so paper thin and crappy, the way that they decided to do this, making this look almost like we're walking around in a crazy archaic ancient Victorian painting. This game is gorgeous, and really it is a technical marvel. There are practically no load times, the ability to just zip and dash around, shattering millions of enemies into millions of little pieces. This game is a real visual treat. If nothing else, I do appreciate the fact that they decided to try and do something different. This does feel like it's trying to push the boundaries and really blur the lines between classical art and modern art. I think that's very, very cool. It's just a damn shame that playing this game is no fun. This is a very bare bones hack and slash RPG. In this game, we're going through some super simplistic missions and collecting talent points, leveling up, and trying to craft new suits of armor. But the problem is that none of this is fun. Like, it's just so silly. So the way this works specifically is it's kind of like a Dark Soulsy style system. And what I mean by that is that it's very focused on not being hit. This game is a little bit of a joke, especially if you've played anything that's actually difficult. Like, all you have to do is dodge a couple attacks, try and land some fast blows yourself, and there is some things like the break system. So basically, as you switch between your strong attacks and your fast attacks, you can shatter parts of their health bar. This combat is legitimately so boring that at one point, while I was in a fight, I fell asleep. Yes, I'm being completely serious. This game literally bored me to sleep. I woke up with the controller in my hand and I was like, oh god, I'm still playing this. But why is that? Well, because quite frankly, it is just super basic. This feels like a beta test or an alpha test of a game that maybe would have good combat later on. This is based on a very dodge heavy system, which is that if enemies hit you, it does hurt. You will die if you take even just a couple blows, but the game is very forgiving, and frankly, a lot of these enemies are just super dumb. Like, a lot of times people have like a gun, but they don't shoot it, or it'll be a bad guy who has a huge hammer, but he swings it so slowly, you can just step beside him and stab him in the back. Now, everything in this game is based around a lot of like special attack systems. You can do fast strikes, strong attacks, dodges, parry breaks, which is basically if you tap block right as somebody's about to hit you, you'll push their blow aside and stab them. And there are these special unlocked talent point abilities that let you do things like drink your enemy's health or do like a big old special attack. work. But the problem is, since every enemy in this game is so stupid, you don't have to do any of the advanced mechanics. I actually experimented with this. I decided to go into the talent trees and put everything into basic stats. I essentially decided to build my character to have just the most crazy raw stats possible. So just by doing the fastest normal strikes, just by tapping R1 and doing a tiny little stab, those would do 1,000,000 damage. And so because of it, I could go through the whole game completely blowing stuff up and never doing a special combo or a crazy, counter break. Like, this game is dumb to me because it just doesn't really push you to advance. I have said this before, and I'll say it again, the very best games push you to be better. You know what? I try not to actually talk about other games in a review, but let's face it, Spider-Man Miles Morales does this. Spider-Man gives you more abilities, it gives you stronger enemies, it constantly wants you to feel good about improving your abilities. Demon's Souls, of course, does this by introducing bigger and more confusing bosses, that way you are kind of constantly motivated to improve your weaponry and stuff. Godfall does not do that, especially because the loot system is also just so simplistic. So as you're going around and chopping up enemies and trying to progress a little bit in the story, enemies are constantly shooting out loot, upgrades to your weapons, armor, and, special stuff that'll, like, improve your magics. And while this is cool, I guess, because you get constantly just showered in gear and stuff, it's just so minimally upgrade. Like, the game itself is just such a freaking joke. I don't really care about improving my damage per second by a couple points. Now let me take you to the biggest thing I definitely just hated about this game, which is that it doesn't really have a point. Like, this is online only, as I already said, so you might think that this has some sort of heavy online component, crazy multiplayer, or big bosses, or something where you are required to play with others, when that is not the case. I beat the game completely by myself. I never did a single bit of co-op, but it's possible to, if you want, invite a friend to join your game. It does seem like the developers kind of intended this to maybe be some sort of multiplayer experience with, like, hub worlds and stuff, but none of that exists. This feels like a single player version of Destiny, but with swords, and that is it. But the worst thing is the grinding. Sometimes there will be another giant main mission you have to do, and it'll straight up say, okay, you can't go there until you have a certain amount of these sigils. These sigils are like little tiny tokens that'll be like earth magic or air magic or water magic. And so basically the only way to progress in the story is to go and grind random side missions until you save up enough to unlock the next big boss. Now to me, this just feels lazy. I hate the word lazy because I feel like it's such a declarative statement, but you couldn't have thought of a better idea? You couldn't have come up with some sort of plan to try and motivate this? Or let's just say this, I just realized this, maybe you should have written more plot. Maybe this game would have been better if you had contrived some sort of actual storyline here. Instead of making filler missions in the main quest, maybe you should have made more cutscenes or quests or more stuff to make it where this feels like it's something that matters. Like, straight up, I beat the game, I cannot remember any character's name except for my main character and the main bad guy Marcos. That's it. I don't remember anything else about this game, and I literally just finished it. This is such a frustrating experience because this is the PlayStation 5. This is the next generation of gaming, and how are you going to make a launch game this freaking bland? Okay, well, we've heard a little bit of good and a little bit of bad, but let's go over the ratings board and put a big number on it. I am giving Godfall on the PS5 a 3 out of 10. It's very rare that I regret buying a game, because typically, even if the experience itself kinda sucks, the journey of getting there is kinda still interesting on its own, but this game is just downright boring. And I've said this before, but you know what? I'll just state, a boring game is worse than a bad game, because at least a bad game can sometimes be entertaining. Thanks so much for watching, gamers. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all, and keep dreaming. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.